The observation deck of the Celestial Accord's command citadel shimmered with artificial starlight, its panoramic view of the galactic core offering a humbling spectacle to anyone who still believed in the concept of peace. Grand Strategist Belix stood at the edge of the transparisteel window, his crystalline limbs pulsing with a rhythmic resonance, a phenomenon his species considered laughter. "So, you want to declare war on the humans?" he asked, amusement coating his every syllable like a layer of fine cosmic dust. "Commander Tharnis, let me explain why that is the single worst idea since the Talvaxi tried teaching meditation to a binary code hive swarm." Commander Tharnis, young and bristling with ambition, clicked his neural spines in restrained frustration. "With all due respect, Grand Strategist, they're primitive. Pre-continuum drive species. One-star system. Crude nuclear arms. Their entertainment apex is feline videos." Belix gestured to the morphing chair with an elegant limb. "Sit, hatchling. It's time you learn why the Accord's official stance on humanity is simple: don't. Just don't." The commander reluctantly took the seat, his armored carapace fading from aggression red to a more contemplative slate blue. The strategist called forth a holographic archive with a flick of his limb. "Did you know," Belix began, his voice lowering into a storyteller's cadence, "humans are the only known species that intentionally chase their prey until the prey collapses? It's called persistence hunting. They do it for fun." "That's unsettling," Tharnis muttered. "But hardly." "I wasn't finished," Belix cut in, his crystals shifting into a grim violet. "They turned that practice into something called a marathon. A social ritual where they compete, voluntarily, to see who can run until their joints liquefy. They weaponized endurance, and then they laughed about it." The commander blinked slowly, his scales beginning to flicker in confusion. "Oh, you think that's bad?" Belix swiped again, bringing up a parade of Earth inventions. "They developed nuclear detonation before they figured out how to slice bread evenly. They split the atom before learning how to sandwich. That's backwards development. It's psychotic innovation," the strategist hissed. "They flew before they understood air pressure." Then immediately asked, "Can we use this to drop things?" Their space program began with strapping themselves to controlled explosions and hoping for the best. The next hologram showed a grainy Earth broadcast of the first moon landing. "That," Belix whispered, "wasn't progress. That was bomb-riding optimism." Tharnis frowned, "They still lack proper planetary defense." "They don't need it. They have narratives," Belix said, darkly. "We sent a stealth probe to intercept their information nets 3 cycles ago. They've already theorized our technology. They call it science fiction. They're just waiting for reality to catch up with." Another flick. Medical records this time. Before they understood microbes, they thought the solution to infection was just, cut it off. Tooth hurts? Yank it. They sewed wounds shut with horsehair and hope. And it worked. The commander looked physically ill. His pigment was now the white of dawning terror. "They are fragile," Belix agreed. "Breakable. Prone to illness. Requiring constant hydration, warmth, food, and emotional support." He leaned in, voice hushed. "And they know all this. They're aware of every flaw. And they dare the universe to exploit it. Because their answer to every danger is, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger." Belix turned grim. One human broke both legs in a game called soccer. Next match, they played harder, just out of spite. They're powered by spite, Commander. You cannot win against a creature fueled by vengeance and jokes. Tharnis tried to interrupt, but Belix held up a limb. "Let me show you what truly terrifies me." Another projection. Scenes from human films. They make stories. Thousands of them. About us. And every time, they win. They program themselves to expect victory. To consider death a plot twist. Even when they lose, they believe they will win later. They believe, he said slowly, that reality itself is negotiable with enough determination. Didnt stood. The crystals on his limbs dimmed to a sober blue. And the most horrifying truth of all? They adapt. Faster than any species we've seen. They live on a world where weather kills, predators stalk, and the planet itself sometimes explodes beneath them. They evolved in that, and built air-conditioned shopping malls. Tharna swallowed audibly. They're still squabbling among themselves. That's the only reason they haven't reached us yet. But if we become the common enemy? Didnt turned toward the window. They will unite. And when they unite, stars burn. Silence hung thick in the air. The strategist summoned one final document. Classified Celestial Accord Protocol. Official policy, Didnt said softly. Observe. Avoid. Do not engage. Not until they're ready. And if they develop faster than light before maturity? Tharnas asked weakly. Then we run, Didnt said simply. Because if a human ever says, let's see what this button does, evacuate the quadrant. The commander sat in silence, staring at the galactic core. It no longer looked majestic, it looked fragile. And far away, on a little blue world orbiting a yellow star, someone just said, huh. That's weird. The universe collectively held its breath. The Celestial Accord's continuum archives were vast, so vast, in fact, that only beings capable of simultaneously processing time in nonlinear segments could navigate them efficiently. Observer Nalera was one such being. Her gelatinous form shimmered with threads of light as she floated past banks of holographic memories and quantum fact narratives. Somewhere, deep within the restricted Curiosity's wing, a file labeled Homo sapiens, Moon Madness flickered to life. Grand Strategist Didnt stood waiting, his crystalline limbs curled behind his back, reflecting the archive's pulsating energy. Let's begin where the real fear set in, he said softly. The day they aimed a bomb at space, and wrote it. Nalera flicked through the data with a tentacle tip. You're referring to their lunar expedition. They called it Apollo, Didnt confirmed. A reference to one of their old deities, because of course they named their weapons of progress after gods of fire and glory. The file opened in full. There it was, grainy footage of humans assembling an enormous, metallic cylinder atop a pillar of explosive propellant. Every calculation was manual, every success, barely clinging to probability. And yet, they did it. They launched themselves off their planet, Nalera whispered, awestruck. With no shield harmonics, no gravitational neutralizers, they just flew. They strapped themselves to a tower of fire, Didnt corrected grimly. And they volunteered. The holographic display showed the Saturn V rocket igniting, flames blasting out beneath it. The launch pad shuddered. The Earth watched. The humans cheered. They knew, Didnt continued, that they had maybe a 50-50 chance of not dying. They didn't care. They had something to prove. Not to us. Not even to each other. Just to the sky. Nalera pulled up another feed. Why? What drove them? Didnt sighed, his crystals dimming to a melancholic blue. Pride. Curiosity. A desire to see if they could turn their planet's gravity into a suggestion. They weren't trying to conquer space. Not yet. They just didn't want to be told they couldn't go there. The archive rotated through launch footage, mission logs, grainy images of footprints in regolith. Humans walking on the moon. Leaving behind flags, debris, and, of course, trash. Did you know, Didnt said, almost in disbelief, they brought a golf club to the moon? They took their tiny sports ritual to another celestial body. Who does that? They were, nesting, Nalera guessed. Marking territory. Turning the void into comfort. They were mocking death, Didnt replied. The record advanced. Humans in bulky suits clumsily hopping across alien terrain. The soundless void around them betrayed no danger, yet their life support systems constantly hissed like ticking bombs. We thought they'd stop there, Belix muttered. After all, it nearly broke them. The cost, the risks, the politics. But no. Do you know what they said when it was over? He brought up the quote. Large glowing letters shimmered in the air. We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. They seek difficulty, Nalara said quietly. They find glory in pain. That's what scares me, Belix admitted. Most species develop spaceflight for survival. Resources. Necessity. Humans did it out of sheer bloody-minded curiosity and a cosmic dare. They looked at the stars and said, bet I can get there first. Nalara rotated her perception. Is it true they raced each other to the moon just to prove ideological superiority? Yes. They called it the space race. It was essentially a planetary-scale competition of ego. And still, they succeeded. The strategist paused, tapping a crystalline digit against a control node. Do you know what they did when they got there? The very first thing? Transmitted images home? No, Belix replied. They took a picture of Earth. The archive flared to show the image. A fragile blue marble suspended in the endless void. They saw themselves for the first time, he said. As small. As united. The irony is poetic, they only glimpsed their unity while standing on alien ground. Nalara hovered beside him, silent. No further commentary was needed. The projection shifted again. Earth, seen from above, teeming with storms and colors. And then, in one sudden surge, a slew of technological progress, the internet, satellite communications, GPS, smartphones. All traced back to the lunar project. They touched the stars, Belix said, and came back addicted to progress. They couldn't stop after that. They flew to their moon using slide rules and nerve, Nalara added. Imagine what they'll do once they truly understand quantum mechanics. The strategist didn't reply. He simply stared at the silent image of Earth, brilliant, chaotic, alive. Never forget, he whispered, the crude bomb they aimed at the sky worked. Meanwhile, on Earth, a middle schooler in Kansas launched a homemade soda and Mentos rocket and laughed as it flew 15 meters into the air. Their next note in the experiment log was Phase 2, higher bottle, more mints. The universe groaned softly. On the lower decks of the Celestial Accord's observation spire, beneath layers of reality-sharing insulation and temporal shielding, a room known only as the Dream Vault pulsed with quiet horror. It was not a place for physical artifacts or biological specimens. No, this room held something far more volatile, human imagination. Observer Nalara drifted through the containment corridor, her bioluminescent tendrils dimmed to a cautious shimmer. Grand Strategist Belix followed, his crystalline limbs carefully retracted to reduce unintended resonance with the surrounding psychic containment fields. Explain it to me again, Belix said. How did they envision quantum tunneling before they even stabilized alternating current? Nalara gestured with a tendril toward a vault labeled Star Trek. Because they don't dream logically. They dream hungrily. Inside the vault, glowing dream streams twisted in kaleidoscopic confusion. Projections of warp drives, teleporters, time machines, and artificial intelligences danced across the walls, forming and collapsing like unstable particles. A fictional archive, yes, but alive in the minds of billions. They imagined faster-than-light communication, Nalara continued, centuries before they discovered dark matter. They designed galaxy-spanning empires before understanding their own oceans. A new vault door slid open with a hiss, revealing something worse. A dense, throbbing psychic cluster labeled fanfiction, human aliens win every time. Belix recoiled slightly. Is this? Yes, Nalara whispered. Alternate endings. Battle scenarios. War games. Romantic subplots involving alien emperors and rebellious human farmhands. And in every single one, she paused, tendrils curling in dread. The humans win. The strategist gazed at the swirling storm of imagined victories, watching as fictional humans defeated galactic conquerors using duct tape, sarcasm, and raw emotional trauma. One dream thread showed a single human defeating an empire by weaponizing memes. Another involved coffee-fueled time travel and an exploding black hole that spelled out YOLO. Even their fantasies are strategic drills, Velix muttered. They're practicing for galactic dominance, inside their own minds. Nalera didn't respond. Instead, she activated the most secure vault of all. Marked simply as science fiction, yet to be invented, this vault contained conceptual blueprints for technology that didn't exist yet, at least not in the Accord's understanding. Inside, dream models floated, faster-than-light engines powered by dreams, shield harmonics controlled by emotion, and gravity generators that responded to willpower. They created entire physics models, Nalera said, because they wanted stories to feel real. They dreamt us before they met us, Velix realized. Every time a new species enters their field of imagination, it gets archived, analyzed, written about, and ultimately, defeated. Or kissed, Nalera added dryly. It gets worse, Nalera said. They call it sci-fi. But many of the technologies they imagine, they actually build. The strategist raised a crystalline brow. You're suggesting prophecy? I'm suggesting, Nalera said grimly, that they imagine technologies into existence. Give them enough fiction, and they'll make it real just to see if it's possible. They both stared into the vault. One particular thought form, blazing bright, hovered in the center. A massive starship labeled Enterprise class. Under development. Earth circa 2092. Already under prototyping, Nalera confirmed. They're building it because of a television show from centuries ago. Their dreams have inertia. Outside the dream vault, an alert flashed in Velix's comm node. Subject, Earth Youth, inventing FTL coffee via quantum entanglement. He groaned. Tell me this isn't related. Nalera scanned the dream stream again. Actually, it is. Fictional log from 1993. What if a coffee machine could deliver beverages before you even wanted them? The strategist went silent. They've been subconsciously working toward quantum caffeine delivery for 32 years, she said. The machine was inevitable. And the continuum grid? Hijacked by their accidental prototype. Their first coffee burst traveled across 9 parsecs. Silence fell. At last, Velix muttered, so, they are writing their future. With movies, memes, and daydreams. Nalera floated beside him, tendrils softly pulsing. They don't just imagine the stars. They pull them closer. One ridiculous, inspired, physics-defying daydream at a time. Back on Earth, a college student sipped from a quantum-linked thermos and wrote a script about a time-traveling burrito that ended interstellar war. Somewhere across the universe, a hyperspace anomaly briefly flickered into being, shaped exactly like a tortilla. The universe shivered in anticipation. In the citadel of anomalies, a fortified think tank orbiting the neutron star Caldera 7, every species represented in the Celestial Accord sent their brightest minds to predict and prevent reality-threatening events. They had failed. Spectacularly. The command chamber was chaos. Alarms pulsed in silent gravity-twisting vibrations. Tactical oracles wept softly into their neural visors. One entire team of foresight engineers had simply packed up and left for the nearest asteroid spa. Observer Nalera drifted into the storm, unfazed, her tendrils pulsing with the elegance of someone who had long since accepted that reality was optional. Grand strategist Velix stood in the center of the room, crystalline limbs twitching in barely restrained existential horror. What happened now? He asked. A technician, spherical, bioluminescent, and sweating, projected the answer into the air, a newsfeed from Earth. A headline scrolled across in primitive text. Teenager invents stable wormhole in basement, says it was just a science fair thing. Velix exhaled in fractal tones. Of course. Of course it was. They call it project just because, Nalera said, with the weary cadence of someone who had lost 3 bets already. Apparently, the human's motivation was to impress a girl and beat someone named Kevin. Why does it always start with Kevin? Dulux muttered. The footage played, a shaky smartphone video showing a high school student pouring soda into a glowing ring of spacetime while laughing maniacally. Behind him, a banner read Tri-County Science Showcase, 3rd place. It works, whispered the Accord's most senior physicist, sobbing into a bowl of antimatter. They made interdimensional transport, Nalera confirmed, by combining an induction stove, duct tape, and leftover parts from an electric skateboard. And the worst part? Dulux said, his voice tightening. They don't even care. They didn't patent it. They uploaded the schematics as a meme template. The technician rotated nervously. Do we classify this as a military threat? Dulux's crystals flared. No. Worse. It's an entertainment threat. This wasn't a weapon. It was an afterthought. A party trick. Nalera pulled up a collage of previous incidents. This fits the pattern. Humans have a ritual phrase they use before irreversibly altering physics: hold my beer and watch this. The chamber went silent. They use it, she continued grimly, as a prelude to either accidental greatness or catastrophic self-destruction. Often both. We've catalogued over 32,000 incidents where this phrase preceded breakthroughs in energy manipulation, teleportation, or spontaneous combustion. Dulux zoomed in on Earth's technocultural database. Do you know how they invented their first manned glider? Yes, Nalera said. They saw birds and said, I bet I could fall more stylishly than that. And the internal combustion engine? They wanted to race without horses. And nuclear fusion? They got bored splitting atoms and wondered, what if we squished them together instead? The strategist's limbs folded into a pose of dignified despair. Every scientific breakthrough, Dulux whispered, fueled by spite, competitiveness, or curiosity that should have been sedated. I warned you, Nalera said, projecting a new live feed. Remember the coffee incident? They've now hooked the quantum delivery system into a smoothie machine. Why? He begged. Because someone at a beach party said, what if it blended the fruit before I even picked it? Dulux collapsed into the nearest support pillar. They're using theoretical physics to improve brunch. The feed shifted again. This time, a construction drone in orbit showed the beginnings of a structure labeled the interdimensional Taco Bell. No, Dulux whispered. No, no, no. Yes, Nalera confirmed. Someone accidentally opened a stable rift to Universe G15, where the spicy beef formula includes self-replicating flavor nanobots. The humans liked it. They're franchising now. They'd built an empire, he said, on snack food and bravado. The technician buzzed incautiously. Should we intervene? No, Nalera and Dulux said in unison. They thrive on resistance, Dulux added. If we interfere, they'll do it harder. The only way to survive them is not to challenge them. Ever. He pointed to the Master Archive. Update the Galactic Protocol. New Standing Order Number 431, if a human utters the phrase, hold my beer and watch this, evacuate the quadrant. Assume imminent reality alteration. Do not make eye contact. Do not attempt to understand. Do not ask Kevin. As they finished, another alert popped up. A child, age 6, had just asked their home assistant if it could beam juice to grandma. The request had accidentally rerouted a matter transmission prototype in orbit. A glass of apple juice materialized next to a confused elderly woman 400 kilometers away. Well, Nalera said, at least it's non-lethal this time. Dulux said nothing. He simply stared out the window toward Earth, glowing, chaotic, and utterly uncontainable. They're going to fix death next, he said finally. Already in progress, Nalera confirmed. A university freshman just invented a cellular regeneration scaffold while trying to make hangovers optional. The strategist turned slowly. We're not fighting a species. We're surviving a genre. Back on Earth, a man with a wrench, a hoverboard, and an attitude stood atop a garage rooftop and shouted those fateful words. "Hold my beer." The universe braced for impact. The continuum grid, the galaxy's most secure, encrypted, and dimensionally stabilized quantum communication network, was never designed with espresso in mind. And yet, here they were. In the core of grid control, observer Nalera floated in stunned silence. Her tendrils flickered between disbelief and bureaucratic dread as she stared at the incoming reports. Grand strategist Velix, meanwhile, was locked in place, every crystalline facet of his body reflecting a single horrifying truth. Humanity had weaponized coffee delivery. "Tell me this is a simulated event," Velix said without looking away from the screen. Nalera didn't answer. Instead, she activated the master feed. On it played a human news broadcast, one of their more chaotic ones, where the anchors interrupted each other mid-sentence and wore exaggerated expressions of shock. And in a bizarre twist of fate, graduate student Amber Glass has accidentally created a quantum-linked espresso machine that delivers coffee before the order is placed. What? Velix whispered. She wanted to save time in the mornings, Nalera replied, deadpan. So she tried to entangle her coffee maker with her own circadian rhythms. Velix looked at her. That's not how quantum entanglement works. It is now. A new report flashed on the grid. The High Synapse Core, normally a collective of unfathomable intellects, had paused its annual summit to enjoy a spontaneous delivery of something called a venti caramel frappuccino with extra whip. The entire event was now being held at what they referred to as Café Phase Anomaly. "It's spreading," Nalera said. "Of course it's spreading," Velix snapped. "They've discovered faster-than-light beverage transmission and thought, you know what this needs? Whipped cream." Another alert chimed in. "Emergency. Quantum Beverage Link is piggybacking on Celestial Accord's secure frequencies. All planetary systems connected to the continuum grid have now received unsolicited hot drinks. They're hijacking our secure comms to deliver lattes," Velix groaned. "Do they even know what they've done?" "No," Nalera said. "They just think their machine is super efficient. They've named it Burfinity." "Kill me," Velix muttered. Another projection lit up. Footage from the Zralar Peace Summit, a tense negotiation between three warring star nations. The meeting had nearly collapsed, until cups of hot pumpkin spice spontaneously appeared before each delegate. "They thought it was divine intervention," Nalera explained. "They signed a ceasefire and opened trade discussions with Earth. Humanity has accidentally become diplomatically dominant through seasonal beverages." The strategist paced furiously. "We trained generations of cultural liaisons. We spent centuries perfecting interstellar etiquette. And they just seduce entire civilizations with caffeine and whipped topping." The screen changed again. A new trend was forming. Alien civilizations were now studying human cafes as cultural wonders. Starbucks, it turned out, had more cultural reach than the United Galactic Charter. One planet had even restructured its economic policy to include happy hour protocols. Velix's limbs stiffened. "Are they charging for this?" "Yes," Nalera said. "But they don't know how. So they invented an accidental interdimensional currency." "Of course they did. They're calling it Quanta Credit. It syncs with galactic systems based on beverage satisfaction ratings." Velix sat down slowly. "So now, they've invented FTL communication, destabilized secure networks, revolutionized diplomacy, and created a galactic economy, all to avoid cold coffee." "They weren't even trying," Nalera said. "And this Burfinity system," Velix asked, his voice dangerously quiet, "what's it capable of?" "Unknown," Nalera replied. "It's expanding on its own. It started delivering orders based on emotional states." The strategist stared at her. "A human on Earth cried during a rom-com," she explained. "The machine delivered hot chocolate with extra marshmallows before the tears hit their cheeks." "Is it sentient?" Velix asked. "It might be," Nalera whispered. "It's forming preferences." One user keeps getting biscotti with every drink, even when they don't ask. A new emergency banner scrolled across the command chamber. Burfinity has integrated with galactic medical infrastructure. Patients now receiving morale-boosting beverages before diagnosis. Reports indicate a 37% increase in recovery rates. They're healing the galaxy through emotional beverage support, didnt muttered. This is how it ends. Not with war. Not with fire. With caffeine comfort and extra whip. Back on Earth, Amber Glass, still unaware of her role in galactic history, sipped her auto-arriving espresso and scrawled new notes. Her latest question? Can I get pizza this way too? The grid pulsed violently. Nalera gasped. If they connect Burfinity to food. We evacuate, didnt said. Immediately. But it was too late. A test packet blinked onto the screen, Burfinity Update 2.0, Pizza Protocols in Testing. The strategist turned to Nalera, his expression crystal in despair. Send the alert. New directive: if humans combine caffeine and cheese-based sustenance across dimensional links, initiate reality firewall Omega. On it, Nalera replied grimly. Outside, in the swirling starscape, the galaxy shuddered. Somewhere deep in the subspace layers, a black hole hiccuped from receiving an unsolicited espresso shot. And on Earth, someone else just muttered, "This would go great with stuffed crust." The grand archives of dimensional integrity, a neutral vault floating within a stabilized quantum fold, had long been considered the safest location in the galaxy. It was here that reality's loose ends were monitored, trimmed, and occasionally patched with bureaucratic duct tape. Until Earth discovered streaming services. Grand Strategist Velik stood before a crystalline interface pulsing with strained tension. Observer Nalera hovered beside him, her tendrils frozen mid-motion, an expression of stunned paralysis among her species. Tell me it isn't true, didnt said flatly. Nalera said nothing. Instead, she enlarged the alert feed on the central display. Alert, dimensional breach detected. Source, Earth. Cause, streaming latency during thunderstorm. didnt blinked. They tore a hole in reality because their movie was buffering? No, Nalera corrected gently. They tore a hole in reality because a teenager refused to let their movie buffer. They rerouted signal intake through a dimension where it wasn't raining. didnt rubbed his temple, a gesture he'd learned from human diplomats. And it worked? Not only did it work, Nalera said, it's now a subscription service. They call it Streamspan X, Multiverse Edition. A new window opened. didnt watched in growing horror as billions of devices pinged multiple realities for the best weather conditions, clearest resolution, and, most disturbingly, alternate endings. They're watching parallel versions of their shows? He asked. Yes, Nalera said. Apparently Universe B's version of Friends has an arc where Joey becomes a quantum physicist. It's very popular. didnt collapsed into his chair. And they're monetizing this? Of course, Nalera replied. They charge $5.99 a month for access to timelines with better finales. Universe C's version of Game of Thrones has the highest ratings. didnt didn't speak for a long moment. They've bypassed causality, he whispered, to avoid spoilers. Another alert blinked in. Multiverse viewership surges. Darian's now addicted to Universe K's musical documentary version of Earth history. I knew this would happen, Nalera said grimly. Last week, someone on Reddit asked if they could watch a movie from a universe where it was never cancelled. And what did the system do? It gave them a 10-season alternate of Firefly. They cried for 3 days. A third alert hit the feed like a meteor. Incident report: cross-dimensional debate escalates into reality destabilization. Users now fighting over definitive timeline for Fast and Furious franchise. didnt's crystals dimmed. They're triggering timeline collapses over car movies. They're emotionally invested in Vin Diesel across 17 realities. Suddenly, another screen blinked on. Live footage of the hive mind watching what appeared to be a musical drama about galactic warfare starring tentacle beings and singing humans. Captions labeled it as Universe D42's Hamilton Interstellar Edition. They're calling this the golden age of multiversal content, Nalera said. They've weaponized binge watching, Velix muttered. It didn't stop there. New feature, users can now upload their own reality edits. Alert, Universe H just remixed Earth's history into a rom-com starring Nikola Tesla and Marie Curie. Alert, Universe P's streaming index includes a reality where every movie ends with an interpretive dance. Nalera turned slowly. They're curating reality aesthetics. Based on mood. We're losing containment, Velix said. No, we lost it when someone discovered you could order pizza from a universe where it always arrives hot. The strategist sighed as a notification slid across the screen. Breaking, Earth has just trademarked the phrase buffer-free across the multiverse. Galactic Commerce Board in disarray. I thought the StreamSpan network was protected, he muttered. It was, Nalera replied. Until someone asked their smart TV why their signal was slow. The system, trying to help, discovered alternate timelines where that wasn't a problem, and auto-corrected. Velix stared at the wall. We spent centuries safeguarding the multiverse. And they bypassed it by asking a dumb question to a television. Suddenly, the lights dimmed. The main feed flickered. Another alert. Someone just streamed a show from before the Big Bang. It's mostly colors and jazz. Critics are calling it transcendently weird. They're watching before time? Velix gasped. Nalera nodded. And leaving reviews. 1-star review. The plot was nonlinear and lacked closure. Also, too much saxophone. Username, HotTubEinstein42. The strategist stood up slowly. Update the official Accord policy. New protocol? Yes. He sighed. If a human connects a streaming device to any unknown power source and utters the phrase, "Why is it buffering?" evacuate the dimension. Nalera added it. Then paused. There's one more thing. Of course there is. Someone just realized they can access parallel versions of their own lives. Velix turned pale. They're watching alternate versions of themselves? Trying to figure out where they made better life choices. There's a whole subreddit called Me But Better. He sat down. It's over, isn't it? Back on Earth, a lonely teenager queued up their favorite multiverse episode and asked, "What if my life had theme music?" Their smart speaker replied. Now playing, Universe J Soundtrack, Orchestral Edition. The universe sighed in sync. The Grand Hall of Galactic Mediation, once a solemn place of ancient oaths and graviton-inscribed treaties, now smelled faintly of marinara. Observer Nalera floated toward the dais, tentacles twitching in visible disbelief. Grand Strategist Velix stood nearby, arms crossed, crystalline form radiating something between existential fatigue and oregano-scented dread. The high synapse core was gathered. The Talvaxi were present in triple form. Even the Omnivox swarm, who traditionally ignored all organic food, had arrived in hoverpods shaped suspiciously like cheese wedges. The cause of this unprecedented summit? Interdimensional pizza delivery. It started as a culinary experiment, Nalera said quietly, scrolling through the holographic dossier. Earth scientists wanted to test whether Burfinity's entanglement system could handle more than liquids. And they chose pizza? Velix asked, already knowing the answer. They said it was the most structurally demanding food. Melted cheese, toppings, crust integrity, it was the ultimate challenge. Of course it was. The central holoscreen activated, showing footage from Earth. A team of university students in hoodies and Crocs stood beside a humming quantum oven. One pressed a glowing red button. A wormhole opened. And from it emerged a perfectly intact deep dish pizza, steam rising, cheese glistening, crust golden. Velix leaned forward. Where did they get it from? Universe J, Nalera said. Apparently, that timeline perfected the art of pizza centuries ago and never discontinued the zone. The strategist turned away, muttering something profane in 4 dialects. But it didn't end there. Breaking, first pizza delivered across dimensional barrier. Galactic Council receives slice mid-session. Votes swing immediately. They bribed the Zralar delegation with pineapple pizza, Nalera said. The Zralar love pineapple. Who knew? They didn't even mean to bribe them, Delix growled. They were sharing. Update, Omnivox Swarm signs trade treaty for access to garlic knots. Garlic, knots, he echoed. They described it as textured elegance, Nalera replied. Treaties that had been stalled for millennia were now being resolved by what humans referred to as party platter diplomacy. Entire civil wars were paused to await the delivery of stuffed crust samples. Interstellar borders were redrawn after a faction on Nebulon 5 tasted thin crust with hot honey drizzle. It's spreading faster than we can track, Nalera said. They've opened the Universal Order portal. Any species connected to Burfinity can now request food from infinite timelines. And who's regulating this? The humans, she said flatly. Through an app. Delix froze. They've placed control of pan-dimensional treaty enforcement inside a smartphone interface? It has a rating system. Oh good. Galactic stability reduced to Yelp reviews. Another alert flashed. First intergalactic wedding catered entirely from alternate universes. Menu includes Universe H's Truffle Fusion Pizza, Universe X's Eternal Slice, and Universe Zero's Crustless Hover Discs. They're customizing cuisine to match political platforms, Nalera said. One ambassador is only accepting offers accompanied by extra cheese. A final screen slid into view. Proposal, rename Galactic Charter to the Cheesy Accords. Delix buried his face in his hands. Do they realize they've replaced centuries of tense negotiations with a glorified food fight? They're calling it dine and sign diplomacy. Just then, a broadcast hijacked all frequencies. An Earth diplomat appeared on screen, holding a plate. Hello, honored galactic representatives. Before we begin, we'd like to offer samples from Universe T's legendary pesto slice. Our position on trade access remains unchanged, but we are willing to negotiate dessert. The video cut to a molten brownie oozing out of a dimensional tear. Delix nearly fainted. Nalera steadied him with a tendril. They're not trying to conquer us. They're trying to cater us into submission. And it's working, he replied. Meanwhile, in a quiet part of Earth, a teenager connected their Burfinity prototype to a new device, a portable deep fryer, with one goal. Interdimensional mozzarella sticks. For science. The fabric of diplomacy quivered in anticipation. The Celestial Accords Department of Chrono-Integrity had one job: prevent temporal instability. They monitored wormholes, stabilized paradoxes, and made sure nobody accidentally greeted their great-grandparents before their parents were born. They were completely unprepared for hamsters. Observer Nalera floated into the department's containment deck, which now resembled a child's science fair crossed with a mild existential crisis. Dozens of containment spheres whirled in chaotic orbits, each displaying a different Earth-based project that had, somehow, rewritten causality itself. Grand Strategist Velix was already there, watching one screen in abject horror. On it, a child in Kansas giggled while duct-taping a hamster wheel to a repurposed gaming PC. She called it hamster space, Nalera explained. No, Velix whispered. Tell me she didn't discover zero-point energy with a rodent. She was trying to overclock her graphics card, Nalera confirmed. And accidentally unlocked infinite power. The strategist turned away, voice trembling. You're telling me humanity cracked one of the galaxy's hardest energy problems, while modding a video game rig. And they still don't realize what they've done. Another alert appeared on the console. New incident: hoverboard manufacturing plant stabilizes plasma containment fields. Source: Earth teenager with plasma cutter, DIY attitude. They discovered stable plasma physics trying to make a Back to the Future prop, Velix groaned. And now they're selling it to a toy company. The screen displayed a neon-lit marketing video, a teen zooming across a park on a glowing hoverboard while digital text screamed, "Plasma Lift V2, ride the future." "They're revolutionizing propulsion," Nalera said, to impress their friends on TikTok. The strategist turned, slowly and painfully. Are they at least keeping the technology safe? They have no idea how it works. Warning. Unintended feedback loop detected in hover systems. Localized time drift recorded. Delix leaned in. What? They're creating temporal bubbles. Every hoverboard generates a microloop. The kid in Chicago has been stuck reliving the same 10 seconds of airtime, and he thinks it's awesome. The strategist buried his face in his hands. We are witnessing the birth of time travel via recreational sports equipment. More alerts poured in. Hamster energy source syncing with Burfinity network. Hoverboard loops accelerating innovation feedback. Chronodissonance triggered by multiplayer lag displacement. They're forming recursive innovation loops, Nalera said. Ideas inspire tech. Tech inspires better ideas. The hamsters are now powering hoverboard testing. You're saying they've created a self-sustaining absurdity engine. Delix stood still, his crystals flickering in muted panic. Do they know they're altering cause and effect? Not even slightly. They think it's just glitchy physics. One of them said, "I think the air just got faster." Just then, a new visual lit up the chamber. A hamster, wearing a tiny headband, ran tirelessly in a gold-lined wheel surrounded by glowing circuits. The system hummed, lights dimming and brightening in sync with the rodent's determination. They named him Sir Squeaksalot, Nalera added. And what is Sir Squeaksalot doing now? Fueling a prototype hovering designed to deliver pizza at relativistic speeds. The strategist closed his eyes. Of course. In the background, a screen displayed test footage, a slice of pizza hovering midair, vanishing into a portal, then reappearing on a rooftop patio before the customer even clicked order. Project Timecrust, 98.6% complete. They're turning food delivery into quantum teleportation, Nalera said. And what happens, Delix asked, slowly, when they try to deliver pizza to the past? There was a pause. Then a new alert appeared. Warning, localized causal inversion detected. A man received a pizza he hadn't ordered yet. His only comment, "I was just thinking about that." Nalera pulsed with concern. They're manifesting thought-triggered snack loops. Update the council, Delix whispered. To what? New standing order. If a human combines any of the following, rodents, sports equipment, caffeinated systems, or nostalgia-based technology, quarantine the timeline. But, the pizza's already in 5 dimensions. Delix paused. Then nodded grimly. Then we're too late. Back on Earth, Sir Squeaksalot ran in glorious silence, unaware he was now the most important energy source in the multiverse. Meanwhile, a hoverboard zoomed across a suburban cul-de-sac. Its rider left behind a ripple of temporal instability, a faint smell of pepperoni, and a new hypothesis about quantum inertia titled, "I think I can go backwards if I laugh hard enough." The universe stared. And then began to loop. The Galactic Bureau of Interdimensional Ethics, a place once known for serious debate over time paradoxes and multiversal law, had devolved into something different. A dating center. Observer Nalera floated past a row of dimensional monitors, each now repurposed to display digital profiles. Swirling across the screens were timelines where humanity had reached into the infinite cosmos not to conquer it, but to flirt with it. Grand Strategist Velix stood frozen, staring at one of the larger displays. "Please tell me this is a joke," he whispered. Nalera didn't answer. She simply activated the latest incident log. New alert, multiverse dating app detected. Name, Paralove. Motto, find your soulmate across all possible realities. There, dating? Delix asked, in disbelief. Not just dating, Nalera replied. They've created a system that matches users with alternate versions of romantic partners. They're advertising it as, because somewhere, they love you back. He blinked slowly. That's terrifyingly poetic. Subalert, user has connected with 147 alternate versions of their crush. Status, 1 proposed. 46 ghosted. 3 left angry Yelp reviews. And they're reviewing each other? Velix said, horrified. They've gamified love, Nalera said. Users receive profile badges like most compatible in universe cluster theta and least annoying timeline spouse. A nearby console lit up. New feature, timeline transparency. View how you behave in relationships across parallel realities before committing. One user stared at a projection of their worst timeline self yelling about socks. Now they're conducting background checks, Nalera said, on themselves. They've created a romantic surveillance state. More alerts scrolled in. Dimensional date night packages, choose which universe has the best restaurants. Universe W offers sentient chocolate fountain dining experience. Universe R specializes in 4D relationship counseling with multiversal therapists. They're going on dinner dates, Velix muttered, with people who technically don't exist in this universe. That's not even the weird part, Nalera said. Velix turned sharply. There's more? Yes. They've created a universal scheduling assistant. ChronoSync aligns dating schedules across timelines to avoid paradoxical anniversary overlaps. And it works? Mostly. Except for one couple that accidentally scheduled a proposal in a timeline where they never met. She said yes anyway. Velix sat down. They're rewriting causality, for romance. Another window popped open. Trending now, multiversal love language translator, understand how every version of your partner expresses affection. They've invented universal compatibility metrics, Nalera said. Even the hive mind is fascinated. A side monitor displayed thousands of merged profiles, each tagged, currently seeing each other in 5 realities. And what happens? Velix asked, slowly. When they break up? Nalera hesitated. Then displayed a final alert. Multiversal breakup detected. Emotional shockwave destabilizing 3 adjacent timelines. One version responded with interpretive dance. Another blocked them on every dimension. They're creating ripples, she said quietly. Emotional feedback loops across realities. Velix stared blankly. They've turned heartbreak into a quantum weapon. Back on Earth, a young woman swiped left through infinite versions of the same man. In one reality, he was a poet. In another, a space pirate. In one particularly chaotic timeline, he was a sentient toaster with great abs. She hesitated. Then swiped right. Somewhere across the multiverse, a ping echoed through the cosmic fabric. It's a match. The universe fluttered like a nervous chaperone. Chapter 9, Love Across the Dimensional Divide. The Galactic Bureau of Interdimensional Ethics, a place once known for serious debate over time paradoxes and multiversal law, had devolved into something different. A dating center. Observer Nalera floated past a row of dimensional monitors, each now repurposed to display digital profiles. Swirling across the screens were timelines where humanity had reached into the infinite cosmos not to conquer it, but to flirt with it. Grand Strategist Velix stood frozen, staring at one of the larger displays. Please tell me this is a joke, he whispered. Nalera didn't answer. She simply activated the latest incident log. New alert, multiverse dating app detected. Name, Paralove. Motto, find your soulmate across all possible realities. They're dating? Velix asked, in disbelief. Not just dating, Nalera replied. They've created a system that matches users with alternate versions of romantic partners. They're advertising it as, because somewhere, they love you back. He blinked slowly. That's terrifyingly poetic. Subalert, user has connected with 147 alternate versions of their crush. Status, 1 proposed. 46 ghosted. 3 left angry Yelp reviews. And they're reviewing each other? Belix said, horrified. They've gamified love, Nalera said. Users receive profile badges like most compatible in universe cluster theta and least annoying timeline spouse. A nearby console lit up. New feature, timeline transparency. View how you behave in relationships across parallel realities before committing. One user stared at a projection of their worst timeline self yelling about socks. Now they're conducting background checks, Nalera said, on themselves. They've created a romantic surveillance state. More alerts scrolled in. Dimensional date night packages, choose which universe has the best restaurants. Universe W offers sentient chocolate fountain dining experience. Universe R specializes in 4D relationship counseling with multiversal therapists. They're going on dinner dates, Belix muttered, with people who technically don't exist in this universe. That's not even the weird part, Nalera said. Belix turned sharply. There's more? Yes. They've created a universal scheduling assistant. ChronoSync aligns dating schedules across timelines to avoid paradoxical anniversary overlaps. And it works? Mostly. Except for one couple that accidentally scheduled a proposal in a timeline where they never met. She said yes anyway. Belix sat down. They're rewriting causality, for romance. Another window popped open. Trending now, multiversal love language translator, understand how every version of your partner expresses affection. They've invented universal compatibility metrics, Nalera said. Even the hive mind is fascinated. A side monitor displayed thousands of merged profiles, each tagged, currently seeing each other in 5 realities. And what happens, Belix asked, slowly, when they break up? Nalera hesitated. Then displayed a final alert. Multiversal breakup detected. Emotional shockwave destabilizing 3 adjacent timelines. One version responded with interpretive dance. Another blocked them on every dimension. They're creating ripples, she said quietly. Emotional feedback loops across realities. Belix stared blankly. They've turned heartbreak into a quantum weapon. Back on Earth, a young woman swiped left through infinite versions of the same man. In one reality, he was a poet. In another, a space pirate. In one particularly chaotic timeline, he was a sentient toaster with great abs. She hesitated. Then swiped right. Somewhere across the multiverse, a ping echoed through the cosmic fabric. It's a match. The universe fluttered like a nervous chaperone. Somewhere at the edge of what the Celestial Accord called the reasonably containable universe, the multiversal nexus core had gone offline. Not because of war. Not because of black holes. But because someone on Earth had just asked. Can I use Paralove to match my toaster in every dimension? Observer Nalera floated through the darkened halls of Nexus Central, lights flickering with timeline instability. Grand Strategist Belix followed, silent, his crystalline form flickering in hues of dread and exhausted resignation. They've done it, Nalera said. Belix stopped walking. What did they do? They've crowdsourced the unified theory of love. Explain. Nalera pulled up the most recent breach log. Alert, research paper published, Quantum Entanglement and Romance, a cross-dimensional study of why you're still single in every universe. It's been peer-reviewed, Nalera continued. By every version of the author's axes, across all known realities. Belix made a sound only a vibrating mineral construct could make. We warned them. We warned everyone. Another alert blinked on. Breaking, Earth develops cross-reality compatibility matrix. Users now rated for moral growth and emotional self-awareness across timelines. They've turned emotional healing, Nalera said, into a competition. Screens lit up across the chamber. One showed a leaderboard labeled Top 10 Most Dateable Multiverse Variants. Another featured an algorithm that used romantic regret to fuel time loop collapses, accidentally creating a love feedback singularity that now powered a new energy grid over 4 sectors. Warning: Nexus stability compromised by romantic echoes. Dimensional harmonics fluctuating due to the one that got away pulses. They're breaking the laws of physics, Dulux muttered, with feelings. A new broadcast hijacked every Accord channel. It showed a human standing in front of a whiteboard titled, "How We Solved Everything with Pizza, Love, and Hamsters." "I'd like to thank my multiverse therapist," the human began, "and my toaster for always believing in me." The crowd behind him cheered. Dulux turned to Nalara, eyes hollow. "We've lost, haven't we?" "No," she said softly. "We've been adopted." Another alert chimed. All major species requesting integration into Earth's multiversal love framework. Synapse Corps now shipping cuddly therapy slime to all Alliance members. Galactic War Council rebranded to Galactic Date Night Advisory Board. "They've ended war," Nalara said, with matching outfits and deep dish. Silence stretched across the Nexus. And then a final message arrived, simple, short, and delivered by Burfinity itself. "Your pizza, soulmate, and emotional growth opportunity will arrive in 5 minutes or less, across all realities." Back on Earth, a confused toaster vibrated with quiet pride. A nearby human, humming to themselves, wrote the next paper. "Why my soulmate is probably me from a dimension where I took therapy seriously." And far, far away, the fabric of the multiverse folded into itself, not in collapse, but in a warm, cheese-scented hug. Because in the end, humanity hadn't destroyed the galaxy. They had dated it.